Senior correspondent with CNN News, Jim Acosta, just completed his presentation on real news here at James Madison University in the Forbes Center.
So you're trying to engineer the racial and ethnic flow of people into this country.
Jim, that is one of the most outrageous.
You're probably used to seeing Acosta during White House briefings like this one with Stephen Miller, senior advisor to President Donald Trump.
This is a racist bill is so wrong and so insulting. Jim, the reality is that the foreign-born population into our country has quadrupled since 1970. That's a fact. It's been mostly driven by green card policy. Now, this bill allows for immediate nuclear family members to come into the country, much as they would today, and then it adds an additional points-based system. The people who've been hurt the most, the people who've been hurt the most by the policy you're advocating are
what policy am I advocating?
Apparently just unfettered, uncontrolled migration. The people who've been hurt the most by the policy.
What you're doing is for
the people who've been hurt the most by the policy that you're. The people who've been hurt the most.
More than 500 people listened as Acosta explained how the Statue of Liberty defends immigration.
The new colossus that is affixed to the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. I said, Stephen, it doesn't say anything in this poem that's on the Statue of Liberty about people speaking English or being a computer programmer. And he goes, Stephen Miller says, well, Jim, the Statue of Liberty, it's a symbol of American liberty lighting the world. The poem that you're referring to, that was added later. It's not actually part of the original Statue of Liberty. And that was the moment where I said, oh, Stephen, you're engaging in national park revisionism.
Stephen, I'm sorry.
No,
Jim,
let me ask you a question.
That sounds like some national park revisionism.
No, what I'm asking you is...
The Statue of Liberty
Jim,
has always been
let me ask you a question.
of hope to the world for people to send
do you believe,
people to this country. And they're not always going to speak English, Stephen.
They're
not always going to be highly skilled. They're not always going to be...
Jim, I appreciate your speech. Jim, I appreciate your speech, so let's talk about this.
It was a modest...
Jim, let's talk about this.
That's what I said to him. So you're going to say that the Statue of Liberty is not about immigrants. That's what you're... Yes, that's what I'm saying. What? Because I went to Fairfax County Public Schools, and then I went to James Madison University. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan as president, and when they refurbished the Statue of Liberty, Ronald Reagan gave a speech at the Statue of Liberty, and he talked about how the Statue of Liberty was a lady of foreign birth, a gift from France. And Ronald Reagan talked about all of the people from all walks of life, from all over the world, who helped build the Statue of Liberty and helped weld it together and put it together. So I went that night on the National Park Service website for the Statue of Liberty. It says, the immigrant's statue. There's people coming in the early 1900s. Look at them holding their kids' hands. There's a little boy at the bottom there saying, look, Papa, look at the Statue of Liberty, as they're sailing into the New York harbor.
Acosta says when President Trump was elected, the president was annoyed with learning the Russian government may have compromising information about him.
You need to know that because you're going into the Oval Office with this background noise going on, something we're investigating, we're looking into. We're trying to find out if the Russians meddled in the election. That obviously did not sit well with him. He didn't want anybody to think that there was any foreign actor that had helped him become president of the United States. We could spend an hour talking about all of that. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going through the abridged version. But the fact that that occurred, that the intelligence community had told the president this, was an actual occurrence. It was real news. It is something that happened. The heads of the intelligence community told the president-elect, by the way, this has happened. CNN broke that story, and so it was my job to go into the press conference that day and ask the president-elect about this. And this was the only news conference that he had had during the transition period from being elected president to when he was sworn into office. And I tried to ask a question. I was raising my hand, Mr. President-elect, can I ask a question? I want to, can you state that the Russians had, nothing to do? And he would not call on me. He was like, no, not you. And he would call on people around the room. And we had this interaction right here where he goes, you are fake news. And this is basically what happened. I said, and just to back up a little bit, let me see if can I back up? Yeah. Before this happened, Sean Spicer, the incoming press secretary, Vice President-elect Mike Pence, all came into the room, and immediately they were attacking our reporting. They were calling it fake news. They were essentially saying that this is information you can't trust, even though it is something that happened. The intelligence community warned President-elect Trump this had happened. And so it was my belief that he just didn't want to answer this question. He didn't want to call on us. He didn't want to dignify CNN with the ability to ask him a question because he was so irate about this story that we had broken. And so it finally got to this point where I said, since you're attacking our news organization, can you give us a question? Trump, no, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news. And I said, that's not appropriate. And it sort of ended from there, and somebody else asked a question.
He explained how the term fake news was established by the Trump administration in order to distort factual news stories.
Up until that point, the term fake news meant what? It did not mean stories you didn't like. It meant, for example, there was a story floating around during the 2016 campaign that Hillary Clinton was running a child sex ring out of a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. Now, raise your hand if you think that that happened. Okay, let the record show that not anybody, even back here, I feel like it's theater in the round, you know, not one person raised their hand and said that they believe that story. That is fake news.
Acosta received a standing ovation for his presentation on the evolution of democracy and the collective responsibility of ensuring that it survives. Acosta was questioned about his time covering the White House as well as covering Donald Trump's presidency.
I just wanted to ask, with the oversaturation of news that comes from the White House, how do you, as an organization, mitigate that to give?
I spoke with JMU student Gianluca Grignoli. He was among the students questioning Acosta.
I think it's incredible. I think that, honestly, it's inspirational. It just kind of gives me a feeling of that, you know, if a JMU grad can go and, you know, be on CNN and do something amazing, why can't I?
Andy Perrine is the Associate Vice President for Communications and Marketing at James Madison University.
His message was one of hopefulness and encouraged students to engage, understand what's going on. He even talked to some tour groups on campus because they recognized him when he was walking by. So it was wonderful. And then this afternoon, into this evening, he really gave us an insight into not only what he does, but who he is.
In Harrisonburg, Elaine Rackley for Breaking Through News.